Hello there guys, today we're gonna go over the Pan-American battleships and that end with Libertad, the ship that I could describe with one word: push. It's a big, tanky and very deadly secondary battleship that requires very little thought process to actually play. However, I still see a lot of people struggle with it, so well, here we go with this video. I will cover the build, the playstyle, the captain skills, and at the end I'm gonna give you some demonstration on how to well, play it. Libertad isn't the average tier 10 battleship, she's not there to snipe. She wants to get in the opponent's faces. So what does we have to do so? We have 490mm guns. On lower tiers we have 381s. This caliber is British, but the HE is a standard HE. So do not think that you are a conqueror and just sit back and spam HE. It's not gonna work. If you want to sit back and spam HE like a conqueror, play the conqueror. What is British, however, is the improved acceleration. Unless you are turning, then it doesn't work since the latest nerf. Libertad line is also heavily armored, capable of bouncing most standard AP shells, and has a citadel protected by space armor, but it's vulnerable to SAP from ships like Colombo, improved Penangos AP like Des Moines, Salem or Puerto Rico, and AP dive and skip bombers, so Haku, MVR and Shinano. And the AI is pretty mid, so it's even worse. On lower tiers, this line also has a shot trap. For tier 8 it's on both ends of the ship, back and the front. And for tier 9 the citadel is flat and not angled at all like we have on tier 10, so all the shells are more likely to citadel. Ship also has only two consumables, the repair party and the damage control. So you don't really have a lot of things to play with like GK has with its Hydro. But it's compensated with one neat stuff, the combat instructions. This special thing charges from two sources: main battery hits and potential damage taken. Once charged, you can activate it to hyper boost your secondaries, giving them massive buff to range, 20% on the tier 10, 30% damage and 20% reload time, and that lasts around 30 seconds. Parry it up with a lot of secondaries and very high caliber, like 234s and 127s, you basically turn your ship into high pen machine gun with armor. By the way, the big secondaries on Libertad are literally Goliath main battery. They even use the same HE, just with War's escape velocity, and half the reload for some whatever reason. Now to quickly go over upgrades and captain build. First of all, upgrades. All you need to do is upgrade your secondaries, as this is gonna be your main source of damage. So you want everything that gives them more HP and more range and reload. On slot 4, you cannot take the acceleration buff. You can think about taking the steering gears, but I still think damage control system is just gonna be a little bit better than steering gears. You're not turning well anyway, so why bother? Concealment is a very important upgrade, such as the last one for extra buff on the secondaries. If you really want, you can try playing with the main battery modification. However, your playstyle is gonna be focused around secondaries and the funny button anyway. And since the funny button's cooldown and duration is very similar to your main battery main reload, you don't really want to improve it beyond that. For flags, I suggest just going for, well, mandatory trio, which is Charlie Kilo for HP, India Yankee for fire duration, and the secondary one. For captain build, you want to focus on your secondaries again and your concealment. Brisk is a very nice addition since you can actually have some decent speed to get you to the close range, and combine that with really good concealment, you're gonna have it done real quickly. Adrenaline Rush is like normal standard thing. Concealment Expert and the secondary perks plus fire prevention. You cannot really modify this build that much since, well, this ship is heavily restricted by the requirements of the secondaries. This will give us pretty good concealment of 13 kilometers and secondary battery range of 12.5, meaning that basically the moment we get spotted, our secondaries will open fire. You don't need IFHE for those secondaries since they already have a very decent penetration. Okay, now let's go over general playstyle and positioning for Libertad. It's simple enough, push, but the execution matters. In early game, you want to, try to find the spot you can safely push from later on. Key things to consider are enemy positioning, search for large empty spots in the lines, and minimize potential crossfires. Cover islands that let you close the distance, and basically the moment you get detected, you're gonna be in the secondary firing range. For simple flanking potential and escape routes. Well, make enemies unable to get away from you or choose to fight either you or your team, and the best part is if you force them to fight both. No free breaths for the enemy team. And last, look for the ships that counter you, such as subs, torpedoes, and SAP monsters. You want to avoid going in a way where you can actually be like crossfired by both. Like, you can deal with each and one of them if you're gonna get yourself in the correct position. In mid game, you need to push. Select targets one by one, from most to least dangerous to you. Zigzag and change the speed to make it much harder for enemy to actually hit you. And in late game, go more towards the middle of the map. Try to finish off enemies using your concealment and your secondaries. There's nothing that's more scary for a random cruiser player than surprise Libertad in the face. Before I give you my gameplay demonstration, I want to give you some tactics for using the combat instructions. First of all, you need to remember that combat instructions charge via shell hits, so you don't need to actually pen, you just need to hit, and potential damage received. The more you bounce and dodge, the better. If you find a Dutch airstrike ship, you will charge it really fast. Use combat instructions when you can. As long as there is a ship you want to fight within 15 kilometers of you, you can just keep it in there and just use it off cooldown. And bonus tip, the duration of your instructions is almost identical to your reload. So you can time your salvos so that the moment one combat instruction ends, your shells land and you gain some progress instantly. Okay, now let's go over and get some gameplay demonstration, shall we? Remember guys, you can always like and subscribe this video, it will help me up a ton, and it costs you absolutely nothing. You can always unsubscribe. Thank you. In first battle, I spawned on the flank, and I saw that I have a very strong DD in front of me to support me, such as Smaland is. And I've decided that's a good idea to play around Smaland, since he's gonna almost guarantee the detection of enemy DD and maybe the submarine. And he actually did. Smaland killing the submarine basically unlocked me this part of the map. All I had to worry about is to angle to BBs and to the Yamagiri. which was relatively easy since they were in the same direction. Our submarine also spotted a lot of torpedoes, allowing me for easy dodges there. I try to hold my shots a little bit since I know that those battleships are not really care about my main battery. However, this Salem is gonna be terrified and deeply struck the moment I get my guns on it. Notice how much progress I'm gaining from just dodging the airstrike from this Dutch battleship. And so I held my shots as much as possible just to focus on the Salem, leaving everyone else to my secondaries. Also getting some cross-map shots to finish up a cruiser that's mispositioned a little bit is not an entirely bad idea since you're still a battleship and I'm detected anyway. After I depleted all my heals and I still have, enemies trying to kill me, I play a lot with my acceleration rather than my turning, since upgraded acceleration is actually a very good way of making so that enemy shells fall on the armor part of your ship, which will make them bounce. This poor Yamato did not really stand a chance against my, high-pen secondaries, and even though I was very little on HP, I still managed to get a, relatively good score. So as you probably saw, all it takes is one good teammate play to enable Libertad to just completely deny enemy the flank and win the game, borderline solo. In a second game, I've spawned in the middle, so I chose the flank that I felt more comfortable with, and there were little allies, so they actually needed me there. Notice how I'm trying to get some cross shots early on, but decided not to get detected too early. I got detected by the DD for very short time, but that's not a problem. I dodged the airstrike and borderline got my funny button ready. I held my trigger to get as close to enemies as possible without being detected so that they can feel my fury for the longest possible time. With the help of my allies, we completely annihilated the flank, with me staying relatively high HP. Even though I got a little bit cross-torped here, I still had a lot of HP left due to my conservative play in the early game, so I could actually push through the middle to the flank that actually lost. Thanks to the island cover, I had very easy time getting into action. However, my fun was a little bit interrupted by appearance of enemy submarine, but thanks to the fact that I'm no longer able to accelerate during turning, the dodging of the stops was not that hard. Good that I've noticed the Shima getting detected, and that prompted me to actually start turning towards it much faster than normally I should. Therefore, the moment the torps were spotted, I was already in a pretty good angle to dodge them. And using combination of my final button, secondary power and main battery, I managed to completely clear this flank. Okay, let's just quickly go over pros and cons of the Libertad to wrap things up. Pros are the brutal secondaries with, well, combat instructions to boost them even further beyond. Great armor against standard shells, very simple and very effective playstyle. And intimidating late game carry potential. And cons are, well, you're very vulnerable to SAP and improved AP. Well, from the distance you're basically useless. No Hydra, no fighter, no speed boost. You need to close the distance, which, well, can be dangerous if you do it incorrectly. And you're being punished very hard for being too passive, which many people do not have. So in short, you're rolling Fortress of Doom, but pay attention and grow some balls. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you want to support my channel, just click like and subscribe, and maybe leave some comment underneath this video. It's been Senpai Silent. See you next time.